In this video, we're going to finish up all the stuff in, I think it's chapter 9, related to perfect competition, opportunity cost, and profit maximization. In our last video, we were talking about market conditions, so what makes something qualify as perfect competition. We looked at shutdown conditions, so when a company would actually exit the market in the long run and the short run. And in this video, we're going to start by talking about free entry and exit into the market. So this is one of the conditions for something to be perfect competition. It has to be easy to enter the market and easy to exit. And so this eliminates typically companies that have very high fixed costs, high infrastructure costs, like an airline. Not really easy to start your own airline. You need access to a lot of money to do that, capital or other resources. If you want to start a produce stand, a coffee cart, you want to sell keychains on Etsy, it's going to be a lot easier to enter those markets. So for perfect competition, we're assuming free entry and exit, which means there's not very many barriers to entering a market or exiting. That means that if firms do have capital equipment, technology, machinery, they can probably sell it to somebody else when they exit, or they otherwise have low fixed costs, low sunk costs. So we're going to say that suppliers will enter markets where there is a positive economic profit and price is above average total cost. Suppliers are going to leave markets or exit markets where there's an economic loss, negative economic profit, right? Where price is below average total cost. We're going to see this impacting our price so that in the long run, we get to zero economic profit. And this is the point where price is equal to average total cost. So we're going to have our supply and demand in our market, and then we're also going to have our individual firm, which you see over here on these graphs. And they're price takers, right? So they're stuck at whatever that market price is. That's going to be their demand, their marginal revenue. And as the supply curve shifts, it's going to cause that market price to shift as well. So an increase in supply is going to cause that market price to go down, and a decrease in supply is going to cause that market price to go up. And so what we're going to see is that when prices are too low, they are below average total cost. We're going to see firms exiting the market, which is going to shift supply to the left and raise market equilibrium prices. And when prices are high and they're making positive economic profit, we're going to see the opposite, a shift to the right or an increase in supply and a decrease in price. Okay. Until we hit that long run of zero. And then when we're at zero, it's where price equals average total cost, we're just going to see people stay there. So if you can make the same profit in your current company as you would somewhere else, you're just going to stay. So this top two sets of graphs, we see a positive economic profit. Okay, so we're going to start here at supply 1. We're going to assume this is where the market of radishes, which is a little vegetable. If you don't know what a radish is, it's like small and red, a little bit spicy-ish, I guess you would describe it. So let's say it's 40 cents per pound. We're going to get this horizontal curve here. And our individual market, our individual farmer, is going to be selling $6,700 per month. Our market total is going to be 10 million. So of the 10 million, each individual firm is producing about 6,700 pounds. They are making a positive profit. So when we look here at 6,700, our average total cost is 26 cents, which means they are earning 14 cents per pound. Multiply that, and you're going to get a profit of, looks like about $938, according to this graph. So what's going to happen is this means this is a positive economic profit. They are making $938 more selling radishes than if they were selling something else. Because remember, this is including our opportunity cost. So other farmers are going to realize, oh, this is a good idea. I need to jump into this market. I'm going to switch because I'm making negative $938 in economic profit, right? I could be making more if I sell radishes. So it's going to increase the supply of radishes. That's going to shift this supply curve to the right, and it's going to lower the equilibrium price down to 22 cents, which is this lower line right here. That's going to be the point where price equals average total cost equals marginal cost. So we're going to see that the price is 22 cents. The average total cost is 22 cents. Right? Marginal cost is 22 cents, which means your economic profit is equal to 0. So at this point, nobody's going to switch. All the radish people will stay selling radishes. All of the, I don't know, chili farmers will stay selling chilies or whatever the alternative would be. And then we can see the opposite in this, in these graphs down below. So here we have, it doesn't say what the price is, but we're starting down here, price of 1. You're going to see that it's below average total cost. Okay, so it's still the point where price intersects with marginal cost, but now that average total cost is much higher. So this is going to be negative economic profit. They're losing money. It's economic loss. So we're going to see people exiting the market. It's going to shift that supply curve to the left, which raises the equilibrium price in the market. And it's going to rise up until it hits that point of price is equal to average total cost. Who's going to move? I don't know. They're not all going to move at the same time. And if for some reason too many people move in or out of a market, then it's going to become a profit or a loss. And then some people are just going to adjust. It also depends on who's in the short run and who's in the long run. So there may be some radish farmers who are currently in the short run of farming. They may stay with that loss as long as they're covering their variable costs. And it may be some of the long run farmers who decide to move out. We don't know. We're just going to assume that there's a movement in the market. Sometimes we see interesting trends that don't really match. Like, for instance, online sales are growing 2 to 3 times faster than retail sales, which I actually do think makes sense, especially if you're looking at the cost of production and fixed costs. Having a really nice retail location is going to have a high fixed cost compared to having an online business where you can just store the products in your garage or have a warehouse in some cheaper part of the city. And so it makes sense. Online sales are growing faster than retail. So we see there are a lot of firms that may be exiting retail markets, or at least like in-person brick and mortar stores, and moving to more of an online format. But sometimes we see companies that don't match those patterns. For instance, Starbucks is exiting online retail. They used to sell a lot of stuff on the website. You could buy Starbucks coffee, you could buy any of their mugs, all their merchandise was posted on their website. And then they said, no, we're going to exit this market. And at first, that might seem odd. Like, shouldn't they want to capture sales on the internet? Like, they're missing out on a whole customer base. You have to go in person to buy a cup at Starbucks. But the thing about Starbucks is they're really selling an experience. And when you're shopping online, you're not getting that same experience. And so you see that Starbucks, LA mug, Pasadena mug, and it's like $35 in the store. But with the nice lighting and the display case and all the smells, you're like, oh, I need to have that thing. But when you're checking online, it's just a little icon, it's a little image on your screen. You're like, $35 for a coffee mug? I'm going to go see what other LA coffee mugs I can get. Oh, here's one on Amazon for $8. And so they really weren't able to be that competitive, and they found that it was not helping their profits. They're selling an experience which you're not getting online. Where we see Amazon, which is one of the biggest online retailers, and they're actually moving into more retail space, more physical brick and mortar stores. For a while, they were trying to sell, they had like 4-star Amazon stores where you could go and buy products that had 4 stars on Amazon. You could go and look at it. They had like a clothing store. I think it was like at the Americana in Glendale. They had some bookstores popping up. They bought Whole Foods. They own some grocery chains now. And this might seem a little bit weird because their whole business model really is like you buy a bunch of stuff, it's cheap, it's online, and you maybe, buy more stuff than you need. Well, what they found is that some of their in-person stores did terrible. Uh, People, when they're actually like looking at the stuff in person, they're like, oh, this is kind of, this is not good quality. Yes, it's cheap, but I see why it's cheap now. When you're looking online, it's harder to make that distinction. So they actually closed most of their in-person stores, their in-person clothing and product stores, but they're really expanding on their grocery chains. So they bought Whole Foods, but partly that might just be for the distribution center. Um, if you're delivering groceries, you don't want them to be hours away from people. If you're delivering a lot of groceries, you want them to be close to people. There's I don't know. There's just different methods and reasons why. There's some articles. If you're interested in this, let me know. I can send you some more about this. But sometimes we'll see companies that may be defying some of those common patterns, and we really want to think about like why are they doing that? Does that make sense for them? Would that make sense for someone else? Some smaller chains, it might not make sense for them to move fully online or to be fully in person. They may need to have a little bit of both, or they may thrive better in one area or another. But we're always going to see this movement toward an equilibrium. In the last slide, we saw how supply is changing when we have positive or negative economic profit. But sometimes what happens in the market is you're at some sort of long run equilibrium. So let's say we're at point A here, which is at a price of $1.70. That's where we have zero economic profit. But demand increases in this market. So this is the market for oats, like oatmeal. It's a grain. And maybe people are like, oh, oats are healthy. We want more oats, and we see an increase in demand. Well, when demand goes up, that's going to cause price in that market to rise, which is going to increase the price an individual firm makes. They're going to increase their quantity a little bit, and they're going to make positive economic profit. Once that happens, this positive economic profit is going to cause more firms to want to join the market. And then we'll see this eventual shift of supply to the right until prices drop back down to $1.70 and we're at zero economic profit again. So competitive markets, we have an equilibrium of price equals average total cost equals marginal cost. So where firms are making zero economic profits. But as demand changes over time, that profit level fluctuates, and we're going to see firms entering and exiting. Now, this will for sure happen in perfectly competitive markets, but it may not always happen in other types of markets. So, there may be a very high positive profit in the airline industry, but we might not see an increase in the supply of airlines because it's really hard to enter the market. So, this only works in competitive markets where it's easy to enter and easy to exit. So, we're going to see this happening in some types of markets and not in all of them. So suppliers, we're going to assume they're going to exit markets with losses, enter markets with profits until the market equilibrium is restored, which means the same thing can happen in reverse. So let's say demand decreases in this market and we now drop to a new lower price. We're going to see suppliers exiting the market, right, until we get back up to that zero economic profit line. So demand going up or down causes that market price to change, which impacts economic profit and then changes the supply. In the short run, sometimes firms can actually make positive economic profit through cost saving innovations. Even though in the long run they're going to have zero economic profit, in the short run they could potentially have positive profits. So it potentially takes time, a little bit of time for new companies to enter. But then there are other things such as innovations, patents and copyrights, other things that can give them a little bit of temporary market power. So even though firms are price takers, one firm innovating isn't going to change that market price. So if you have one company that figures out a better distribution process for bananas, they maybe can, save 1 or 2 cents in production costs, and now they're making way more profit than their competitors. But they're still such a tiny part of the market, it's not going to impact anything. And so the innovative firms, the ones who come up with new production processes or cheaper ways of making something, are going to be able to make higher profits in the short run. They can't impact demand, they can't impact the selling price, but they can potentially lower their own production costs. So sometimes this can be from things like patents and copyrights. These are legal protections to protect private property and incentivize people to develop things. A patent is going to last for about 20 years. Copyrights are usually for creative works and they'll last for a person's lifetime plus a certain amount of time after. This is to incentivize people, but also it then gives access to that information to everyone. So if you file a patent, you are now telling everybody the secret of your innovation. Other companies can find similar ways to do the same thing, or after your patent expires, they can officially just copy everything that you're doing. But in the long run, what's going to happen is as all the other firms adopt similar innovations, we're going to see those prices, cost of production change for everyone. It's going to lead to positive economic profit in the whole market, which is going to cause an increase in suppliers, dropping that price down, leading again to a long run zero economic profit. We talked about this opportunity cost and supply a little bit in our last chapter. This is thinking about what else could a seller do with those resources. Some of our examples, we're going to be looking at companies who produce one thing, maybe they can produce another thing. Other examples, we're going to look at like an individual who's supplying their own labor and how they may choose between different jobs or how many hours of their labor to supply. But really, it's what else can we do with our resources? We're going to think about things like rate of return on investments, substitutes in production. So, what else could I produce with my time or my factory or my skills? Labor markets, other jobs that our workers can choose. And we're going to do a cost benefit analysis where we want to choose the lowest opportunity cost. So, we want to choose the thing that's giving us that highest rate of return. We're making the most profit, we're making the most wages, we're giving up the next best option because you can't do everything, but we're choosing the thing with that lowest cost. And we assume that supply curves or that marginal cost curve is upward sloping because firms are facing increasing opportunity costs. We also did see last time with economies of scale that there can be increasing explicit costs as well, but we do see increasing opportunity costs. You can especially think of this as like time cost. So if you're looking for a job, maybe those first 40 hours you work, there's some opportunity cost, but to go from 40 to 80, it's going to cost you a lot more, or 80 to 120, you have to give up a lot more. For instance, like when my kids are little, I take them to school, I pick them up from school. So between 9 a.m. and 2:30 p.m., my opportunity cost is fairly low. The kids aren't home, I can be working fully during all of those hours with no problem. But if you're talking about like 3 o'clock when I have to be doing pickup, or 6 p.m. on a Saturday, my opportunity cost for that is much higher. And the same is going to be true for large firms in producing. It may not be time, but even if it is, if they want to hire more people or increase their workers' number of hours, it's going to cost more per hour than those earlier ones. So we are seeing increasing explicit costs. We're seeing increasing opportunity costs. We're going to have that upward sloping curve. And if you remember from before, sunk costs can't be recovered, so we're not going to calculate them when we are looking at opportunity cost. If you haven't made the decision yet, so you haven't started the business, you haven't bought the delivery truck, it's not a sunk cost yet. But after you've purchased it, now we can figure out what can you do next. If you're thinking about college, the classes you've already taken, the money you've already paid, that's a sunk cost. But your college tuition next year or after you transfer, you haven't paid that yet, right? So you want to think about that when you're calculating your opportunity cost. After you're already in school, you can't get the money back. Don't think about it anymore. So we're going to do a couple of examples. I'm going to show you maybe one or two different ways we can look at this. The first, we're going to look at an individual producer. An individual laborer, and we're going to look at his opportunity cost. So remember, this is way back in chapter 1. It's the implicit cost associated with one choice over another. So we're going to start by looking at someone who's choosing between doing two different jobs at the same time. We're also going to look at the cost of capital from the perspective of a business. So let's say they want to purchase a delivery truck. The explicit cost is going to be $100,000. But the implicit cost is going to be the foregone interest that could have been earned if the money had instead been invested. We're going to assume 5% return, which would be $5,000 in the first year. Okay, so do we count this $100,000 as a cost when we're trying to calculate profit? Well, it really depends. So is it a sunk cost or not a sunk cost? Oftentimes with delivery trucks or other physical machinery or capital, we're going to assume that stuff is not sunk. So somebody who wants to sell this truck after they close their business, they can sell it. They can get most of their money back, all of their money back, maybe sell the truck for more than they paid. Other things like education, which is human capital. So your college degree, this is human capital in the labor market. This is a fully sunk cost. So let's say you get an accounting degree and then you decide you hate accounting. You can't go sell your degree to somebody else, right? So all of that money for tuition is totally sunk. So you want to think about, like, is this thing sellable? Can they recover any of it, partial or fully, when deciding if it's a cost? We're going to look at other things too during the semester, like why do more people attend college during a recession? And this is an opportunity cost issue because there's the same explicit costs. Tuition usually does not go down during a recession, but there's lower implicit costs. So people aren't working, their job prospects aren't great. Maybe they're like, this is a good time for me to build up my skills so when the recession is over, I can get a good job. So education, we would say, is a fully sunk cost. Delivery truck, we would say partial or not a sunk cost. So if you buy an operating permit, you pay for employees to attend training, that's going to be a fully sunk cost. You can't get that back. If it's manufacturing equipment, some sort of physical capital, in the long run, it could be sold. So we're not going to count it as an explicit cost. Now, in the short run, it is a sunk cost, only in the short run, because you can't immediately sell it. It's going to take some time. So in the short run, we're going to say it's sunk. We don't want to consider it. So once we purchase that delivery truck for $100,000, we're not going to count it in our opportunity cost for right now. But when we're looking at long run, we absolutely want to. So if I'm trying to decide, should I keep operating every year? I want to think like, well, if I sell that truck, I'm going to be losing $5,000 a year from not earning interest. And so maybe this month I can't sell it, so it's a temporary sunk cost. But this foregone interest is definitely something I want to consider every year because every year I keep that truck, I'm not earning that 5,000 in interest. Okay, so I said we were going to do an example, so here we go. This is a labor market example. Sam is trying to decide how many hours to work as a dishwasher, which pays $6 per hour. And he also is deciding how many hours to spend collecting cans. He's going to take those cans and recycle them, and he's going to earn 2 cents each. So, how should he divide his time? So, in this case, we would say there's substitutes in production. He has two part time jobs, and he's just deciding how many hours to spend doing each. We're going to be comparing the marginal revenue per hour and choose the highest paying options. So, marginal revenue per hour, this could be wages or the income he's earning from cans. It's the amount he's getting paid for his time. So, the examples, I think there's one of these in your homework as well. We have search time or number of hours spent. This is going to be collecting cans. And the total number of cans he finds. It says containers in here, but you could say cans or whatever. Then we want to figure out marginal containers per hour. And we want to figure out marginal revenue. We also are going to have marginal revenue for dishes. In this case, we don't need a table for that because it's constant. So if he works 1 hour, he gets $6. If he works a second hour, he gets another $6. Third hour, another $6, right? It's constant. So marginal containers found, remember this is the difference between the totals. So 1 hour, we're collecting 600. If Sam works for 2 hours, he's going to collect 1,000. So that second hour is going to give him 400 extra. If he works 3 hours, his total is 1,300. So he's getting 300 extra for the third hour. 4 hours is 1,500. So he's getting 200 more. And then that fifth hour is 1,600. And he's getting 100 more. So he has decreasing marginal returns. He's collecting less cans per hour. And you can think about this like when he's collecting cans, he's going to get all the ones that are easy to find first. He's going to go to the locations that have large amounts of cans in their dumpsters. But then as he does more and more hours, he's going to have to go farther and further out. He's going to have to maybe dig deeper in the trash cans or however he collects those cans. It's just going to get harder. For the marginal revenue per cans, we're going to multiply this by 0.02 because he's making 2 cents for each one. And then this can tell you how much he's earning per hour. So that first hour collecting cans, he's making $12. The second hour collecting cans, he's making 8. The third hour collecting cans, he's making 6. The fourth hour, he's making $4. And that last hour, he's only making $2. So when we're comparing this to dishes, we want to find that point where the marginal revenue from one activity is equal to the marginal revenue of the other. Or you could think about this as opportunity cost. So his opportunity cost of collecting cans is the dishes money he's not earning, right? So we're finding where that marginal revenue is equal to the opportunity cost. So in this case, we would say he should collect cans for 3 hours, and then he should switch over and he should wash dishes for the rest of the time. So he's really trying to figure out, how can I maximize my income? And the reason he doesn't just wash dishes the whole time is, if you look at these first 2 hours, he's actually going to make more. Here he makes twice as much, and here he's going to make, an extra $4. So he's going to make $10 more if he spends part of his day collecting cans and part of his day washing dishes. Here's another example. So this is not a labor market example. This is from the firm's perspective. So let's say we have a perfectly competitive market, and there's a flower shop that sells 150 bouquets per month, except in February and May when they sell 500. Each one sells for $50. They have labor costs of $60,000, material costs of $45,000, and they currently own a building, and they could sell it for $100,000. If they put this in the stock market or an investment account, they could be earning 8% per year. So this $100,000 is not an explicit cost. They already own the building. They're not going to have to pay for it. But this opportunity cost of the interest they're not earning is something we definitely want to consider. So we want to figure out what their shutdown price is in the long run, what their typical economic profit is, and if you were entering the flower business, would you want to open a shop in this market climate or not? Okay, so pause the video for just a minute, and I want you to try to answer these questions. So long run shutdown, remember we're looking at average total cost. Economic profit, so total revenue minus total costs, including opportunity costs. And then if you're interested in entering the market, explain if you would or not. So this is not a normative opinion. It's not your personal opinion about what market you think you should go into or not. This should be answered based on the information you find in the question. So for total revenue, total cost, you want to find quantity. So what's the total quantity? Price, we already know, is $50. Total cost, we can add that up from our labor costs, our material costs, and our opportunity cost. Okay, so take a minute, pause this, and then I'm going to go over the answers. All right, so below what price would this flower shop shut down in the long run? Okay, so for this, we're going to be looking at total costs and average total costs. So, okay, we want to figure out quantity first. So for 10 months of the year, they sell 150 bouquets. And then for 2 months of the year, they sell 500. So their total quantity for the year is 2,500. And their total cost is 60,000 for labor, 45,000 for materials, and 8% of $100,000, which is $8,000 for opportunity cost. So 60, 45, 105 plus 8,000, 113,000 is their total cost. So average total cost for this particular market, we're going to say $113,000. Oops, not working. Okay, $113,000 divided by 2,500 gives us an average total cost of $45.20. So that's going to be our long run shutdown price. If prices drop below $45.20, flower shops would exit the market. What is the economic profit for this shop in a typical year? So here we're going to we find total revenue, which is going to be the quantity of 2,500 times $50. And then we want to subtract our total cost, which is $113,000. So 2,500 times 50 is $125,000. And our total cost is minus 113. So that means the profit is $12,000. That's the economic profit, not the accounting profit. The accounting profit is actually $20,000 because that $8,000 opportunity cost is not an explicit cost. So what this means is that if they sell the flower shop, they would earn $8,000 per year in accounting profit, and if they keep the flower shop, they're going to earn $20,000 a year in accounting profit. So this firm is earning $12,000 more than what their other option is. So number 3, if you were interested in entering the flower business, explain if you would open a flower shop in this market or not. Okay, so if you see positive economic profit, you always say yes. Okay, if they're making positive economic profit, say yes. If it's negative, you say no. And if it's 0, you wouldn't enter and you wouldn't exit. So no change. Okay, so if you see 0 economics, it's no change to whatever you're doing. So you wouldn't enter the market, but the flower shop also wouldn't exit. So there's a couple examples in your homework that match these last two. So work on that. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you next week.